The Lebanese government has just published the official text of its 13-point ceasefire agreement with Israel. That has ended, at least temporarily, we hope for a longer period than temporary, a year of fighting with the Hezbollah movement. More details about the terms which were laid out by US President Joe Biden and other US officials last night. The agreement was brokered by the US and France. The text states that the basis of the deal is the full implementation without violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended the last war between Israel and Hezbollah in 2006. That resolution required, among other things, as does the ceasefire agreement now, Hezbollah to remove its fighters and weapons from the area between the Blue Line, which is the unofficial border between Lebanon and Israel, and the Litani River, which is about 30 kilometers to the north of that. And Israel must, over the next month, withdraw its forces and put them back into Israel. And the agreement doesn't... about Hezbollah must remove its fighters and weapons. We are joined now by Professor Neve Gordon, who is a professor of international law and human rights at Queen Mary University of London. And Neve, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
How do we think about this? The best possible under the circumstances?
Any ceasefire is the best possible under the circumstances. So in that sense, clearly the fighting has now ceased or seems to have ceased, and as long as that continues, I think it's something that is very good for both sides. We saw the celebrations in Lebanon with the ceasefire. However, within Israel, a large constituency, and in fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu's base is against this ceasefire. So I am worried that it will not last very long, but we'll just have to wait and see.
It now requires the Lebanese army and the United Nations peacekeeping force to be the only group, and we're told that the Lebanon is moving 10,000 soldiers into this area. Israel has maintained the right to respond should there be Hezbollah rockets sent from Hezbollah's retreated ground into Israel. How badly do you think Hezbollah wants this ceasefire? You say that Benjamin Netanyahu's support base doesn't particularly want it. The Lebanese government certainly seems to want it very badly. How much pressure would there be on Hezbollah to stick to the terms of the agreement?
Hezbollah indicated that it's interested in the agreement, and I think that the Lebanese government could not have signed it without the approval of Hezbollah's leadership. It is unclear to me what will happen in the coming days. We have, on the one hand, the possibility of Hezbollah firing rockets into Israel, but we also have the possibility of Israel bombing Lebanon. And it's not clear what will happen in the coming weeks. What we can say is that Netanyahu succeeded in separating the war with Lebanon with the war on Gaza, because as the listeners probably remember, Hezbollah entered the war following Hamas's attack on Israel as a way of signaling its support for the liberation struggle of the Palestinians, and was unwilling to stop firing on Israel until there was a ceasefire in Gaza. Netanyahu does not want a ceasefire in Gaza and has managed to convince the Lebanese government or the international actors that they actually decide what's going on to create a ceasefire with Lebanon without the ceasefire in Gaza. And I think that is very worrying, because I fear that the war on Gaza will continue.
and might even accelerate. Benjamin Netanyahu was saying on television last night that they want to use the pause, at the very least, the pause in the fighting with Hezbollah to rearm and re-equip their forces for the continuing battle in Gaza. But again, Iran has claimed this ceasefire deal as a victory for Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is claiming it as a victory for Hezbollah. It does seem, at the very least, to have reduced perhaps quite significantly the possibility of a wider, there has been a war, a wider war than just Israel in Gaza, but it does seem to have significantly reduced the chances of a kind of all-out Middle East conflagration.
I actually pray that your words are correct, but I'm not sure I believe that they are.
Okay.
I think that Netanyahu is waiting for a change in the U.S. administration. I think that Trump did signal from the very beginning that he does want a ceasefire with Lebanon. But I think that Netanyahu's eyes are not on Lebanon, but rather on the nuclear plants in Iran. I think that following the disaster of October 7th, Netanyahu understands that the only way he can return to history as a kind of great leader of Israel in his own mind and in the minds of his followers is through a successful attack on Iran, because the death toll of October 7th will mark him as in history, and this alongside the South African submission to the ICJ and the recent arrest warrants issued by the pretrial chambers of the ICC. So he is looking for a way to return to history as a hero, and I think he thinks he can do that through a successful attack on Iran. But I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, as you hope that my suggestion is correct, so I hope that your suggestion is incorrect, but you've spent a lot more time studying the region than I have. It's obvious from some of the video footage that I've been seeing that Lebanese people are desperate to get back into the area where from which they had to flee because of the Israeli attacks on Hezbollah targets in that 30-kilometer zone between the river and the Blue Line. But man, what they're going back to, again, in terms of the video footage that I've seen, is they're going back to absolute devastation. And one hopes somewhere there's a sort of codicil, a sub clause in the agreement which speaks to reconstructing that area.
So first, it's important to know that approximately 1 million people were displaced in Lebanon. And Lebanon is under economic crisis, so the state could not offer these displaced people any kind of housing or any kind of social support. These people, as you said, are now returning to the south. And again, from what you've seen on the screen and what I've seen on the screen is that the Shiite villages and towns in the south of the Litani have been totally devastated, and many people, many hundreds or if not thousands of people are returning to a village without a home. And it is unclear yet what the Gulf countries and what European and North American countries will offer them in terms of finances to rebuild their homes. But I mean, we're looking here at a wintering entering in, and thousands and thousands of people that, despite the ceasefire, will continue to be homeless.
Thank you very, very much indeed for making yourself available. Much appreciated, Professor Neve Gordon, Professor of International Law and Human Rights at Queen Mary University in London.